week how to choose the projects that we want to work on. And as we look at this again, we don't want to work at everything. You may have 60 or 70 projects sprinkled on this chart. You want to concentrate on those projects in that top left-hand corner of this. Now again, how did we get those? Well, as a business, we react to a variety of inputs from our customers, our stakeholders, our regulatory agencies, our employees, and just our business processes. And Lean Six Sigma is a methodology to properly prioritize and align these voices so that we're working on the right projects. And again, the three major voices, the first is the voice of the business. That's, again, looking at what we call the value mountain. We want to grow income. We want to get our cost of goods and all our cost in order. And then we divide that by our balance sheet, how much our capital is. And that shows us what's going to happen to our stock price or our market to value based on these inputs. And that's what the business wants. That's almost every business, any profit business wants to grow value to its stakeholders. Now, the voice of the customer impacts revenue. Now, the business wants to increase revenue, but the voice of the customer often tells you what you ought to be investing in so that you can grow revenue. A voice of the customer also impacts the balance sheet because you may want to keep stock on hand. A voice of the customer may also impact working or the cost of capital so that we can get the right capital in our processes to make what we need. Other voices that are similar to this are the voice of the employee and the voice of regulatory. We can't do business unless we keep things safe and keep things clean in the environment and do the right social things. We also want our employees to stay with us. We don't want to lose employees, so we want to listen to those as well. Now, the voice of the employee is more voice of the process. Voice of regulatory is more of what we had prior, the voice of the customer, but they both intersect. Again, the voice of the process typically is driven by cost of goods sold, research, development, trying to market and get the revenue growth, but those are costs, and typically the voice of the process we want to decrease or increase it in the right way. And then we look at where there's things that are wobbling in our processes, and we put projects on a list such as increase revenue, such as decrease cost. Again, typical ones. Let's stop having injuries to our hands. Those types of things are what go on this, and then we pick out the ones that we think will take the quickest to do, or effort, or time, and then the value that they bring to the corporation when we do them. And those typically will be on the top left-hand side. Those are the ones that we want to write charters for. I would rarely write a charter for anything on the bottom right-hand diagonal half of this particular chart. They may be important to work on. I'm going to write a charter because I'm going to work on those ones that are green first. So, and then we're going to work on those typically with Six Sigma. Some of those projects may or may not be Lean Six Sigma. So we're going to write charters for all of them, and we may put the letters DMAIC on all of them, but they may some be little letters A, little letters of going on, because we're not going to spend as much time, say, on a project where we know the root cause. That would be a DMAIC project, or a project that may actually, we know the root cause, we'll still measure it to make sure it is. We may know the improvement, we'll still measure it as well, but we don't know how to control it. We've got an improvement that doesn't necessarily work at a particular location. We're going to leverage what's been learned in the past somewhere else, but we may not know where it goes now. And so, some of these project ideas that are on the benefit effort matrix may have smaller parts of the AIC, maybe even the M, when we do the projects. Another one of the things that we look at is we want these projects to sustain. We want to have the results forever. And the way to get a good result sustained is that we've got a proper project to work on. If the project's not very big, whether it sustains or not, R is going to go down. We also need a quality of results. That's why we're going to do DMAIC. We're going to do DMAIC because we're going to try we are going to find true root causes and true solutions to get rid of those root causes, and so that we keep them. And the last is the acceptance. We can have a great solution, we can have good value, but if nobody in the organization wants to do it, the results are the same as not doing it at all. It's zero. Now the I up there is that we've already got the right infrastructure. So if we don't have the right infrastructures, the exponent goes down to zero, then we don't get results as well. I'm going to assume that we've got those. We've got policies, etc. That's a bigger project if we don't have it. But we also want organizational acceptance, and that's why we do the methodology. In particular, that's why we do chartering. And chartering is the way that we define the mission for our project leaders. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about how many projects an individual project leader should work on. I'm not going to do that yet, because right now I'm talking to managers. I'm not talking to project leaders right now. I am talking to your managers. No work's actually being done on the project to get it finished, but we've got to get the project ready to get finished. And we often say the defined phase is half the problem solved. If we say that a problem is well defined, it's half solved, well, that's what a project charter is about. And it contains really 6 simple elements, and I would argue those ought to fit on one PowerPoint slide. Those elements are business case, voice of the business, opportunity statement, voice of the process, a goal, how do we know when we're done with the project, the scope, where at do we want to work on the project, then a small little project plan and a team. Now, the last 2, and maybe the last 3, the project leader will work on. But the first 3, and maybe half of the scope, I want the process owners, I want the managers to fill that out. Again, a charter doesn't solve the problem, and it will change over time, but the charter gets you started off on the right point before you even hand it off to a project leader. You have an idea of what you're trying to accomplish with it. Now here's a little definition of the elements defined. As you can see, they're very short. They're questions and answers. What I typically tell people to do is answer the questions and then put it in paragraph form. I'm going to go a little bit deeper than that, but that's essentially what we want to do. We want to write answers to each one of these questions so that it's succinct enough that we can get it done in a 3 to 6 month time period. It's understood. You understand why this is important to the business, what's the problem statement in our process that needs to be fixed, and how much do we need to fix to take full account of the big why, or the business case that we're talking about. So a business case, these questions. How does the project align with our strategic transfer function? The big why. Is there a regulatory issue that we need to deal with? In other words, are we talking about growing revenue, decreasing costs, increasing speed, or maybe footprint, right? Those things that are key to the business. Now, they may be a smaller part of a huge enterprise. They may be the whole enterprise if it's a small business, but everybody's got budgets. And those budgets are key places where we can search to make sure that our business case makes sense. The other thing is we want to know what value is at stake if we do this project. Now, sometimes we'll know that, sometimes we don't. And then we actually want to know what's that big business why. We're going to start the transfer function. I have no problem. In fact, I highly advise it that in this part of the charter, there ought to be a statement that says the big business process why, or big business why output is, etc., whatever that is, revenue growth, etc., and that we're leaving some amount of dollars at stake on the table. Now, I don't get that perfectly when I teach, but that's what I suggest people to do, because if I thought about it that way, my business case can be one sentence, because we understand what we're working on. This is the value. This is why the business wants to invest resources to work on this project. Now, again, business cases can be a little bit difficult because sometimes we're not able to see the improvements on a financial statement, like a regulatory improvement. You're never going to see that on a financial statement, or you're going to have a hard time seeing it on a financial statement. Continued business because you do it. It's proper for type 4 projects to be done on this. And again, we also, another type that we don't hardly see is getting rid of non-value add. That's type 3. Where we're just getting rid of waste, but we're not letting anybody go. Again, we don't want to do that. We don't get rid of waste to let people go. We put them on more important projects. Those are type business cases too. So we could say our project is a type 3, reduce the non-value add process in our budgeting process. Well, that's a type 3 project, and it needs to be done in a lot of places because we spend a lot of time going back and forth on budgeting. Well, let's figure out how to do that. Now, that's a business case, is a type 3 savings. We are not going to see anything on a financial statement, but we can improve it. And again, that's what we're looking at. Type 1 are the easy ones. Those that we'll actually see on a income statement, reduce waste. We'll see it. We can prove that it's the process that was doing it, and we can take it out of next year's budget. That's what we want with a type 1. I would say the vast majority of deployments I do, initially 95% of the projects are in type 1, and then over time they kind of slide down to the other side. Be done on this. And again, we also another type that we don't hardly see is getting rid of non-value add. That's type 3, where we're just getting rid of waste, but we're not letting anybody go. Again, we don't want to do that. We don't get rid of waste to let people go. We put them on more important projects. Those are type business cases too. So we could say our project is a type 3, reduce the non-value add process in our budgeting process. Well, that's a type 3 project, and it needs to be done in a lot of places because we spend a lot of time going back and forth on budgeting. Well, let's figure out how to do that. Now, that's a business case, is a type 3 savings. We are not going to see anything on a financial statement, but we can improve it. And again, that's what we're looking at. Type 1 are the easy ones. Those that we'll actually see on a income statement, reduce waste. We'll see it. We can prove that it's the process that was doing it, and we can take it out of next year's budget. That's what we want with a type 1. I would say the vast majority of deployments I do, initially 95% of the projects are in type 1, and then over time they kind of slide down to the other side. The other type of project is the market share increase, where everybody takes credit for it. We see revenues increase, but everybody takes credit for it. So you don't have as much confidence that you're doing the savings there. So that's what we mean by business case, the types of business cases. So let's